It is the largest immigration raid against any employer since President Trump took office. Yesterday, federal agents targeted nearly 100 7-Eleven stores across the country, including a handful in Dallas.
It marked the largest immigration raid on a U.S. employer since President Trump assumed office. Federal agents descended on nearly 107 7-Eleven locations nationwide, including several in Dallas. Just after sunrise, something unusual unfolded at stores where people usually dash in for coffee, snacks, or fuel on their way to work. Instead of a normal morning rush, a different spectacle played out. Federal immigration officers swept in, one store after another, turning ordinary 7-Elevens into the backdrop for a sweeping enforcement operation. This wasn't random. It was one of the biggest workplace raids of Trump's presidency, designed to send a forceful message. For undocumented workers and the employers who hired them, the warning was blunt: you are no longer safe. In this video, we'll break down exactly what happened in those dramatic raids, why 7-Eleven became the target, the political drama tied to DACA and the border wall, and how a single morning reshaped immigration enforcement for years. Stick around until the end, where we'll reveal how this operation set the stage for Trump's broader crackdown and the lessons businesses and immigrant communities drew from it. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. We bring you in-depth stories on the biggest issues shaping America and the world, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. What began as a quiet Wednesday morning turned into a nationwide spectacle. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, carried out a coordinated series of inspections at 7-Eleven stores. These weren't minor checks, nor were they limited to one city. The raid spanned 17 states, plus Washington, D.C., with 111 stores in total under scrutiny. Agents entered not as customers, but as enforcers, demanding I-9 forms, reviewing hiring records, and questioning workers about their legal status. When it was over, 21 individuals were taken into custody for allegedly being in the country without legal documents. On the surface, that may seem small compared to millions of undocumented people in the U.S. But the arrests weren't the point. The display of power was. The Trump administration wanted both workers and businesses to understand that employing undocumented labor now carried serious risks. This wasn't just about those 21 people. It was about instilling fear and compliance across the nation. But why 7-Eleven? Why target a chain known for Slurpees and Big Gulps? The answer lies deeper. Federal investigators alleged that certain franchise owners had knowingly hired undocumented employees, some using stolen social security numbers or forged papers. Authorities even accused some of housing workers in properties they controlled, raising alarms about exploitation and abuse. The raids sparked an immediate backlash. 7-Eleven's corporate office quickly issued a statement emphasizing that each store is independently owned, essentially deflecting blame onto franchise operators. But public perception didn't separate the brands so easily. The iconic 7-Eleven logo suddenly became linked with immigration raids and fraudulent hiring. To understand why this happened when it did, we need to step back to Washington, D.C. The timing was deliberate. The raids came one day after Trump's rare televised bipartisan meeting with lawmakers over the future of DACA, the program protecting nearly 800,000 so-called Dreamers. While the courts had temporarily blocked Trump from ending DACA, pressure mounted on Congress to find a solution. Trump made his stance clear: no wall, no deal. Launching a high-profile raid the very next morning sent a clear political signal. This wasn't just enforcement of labor laws. It was muscle flexing during one of the most contentious immigration debates of his presidency. For employers, the message was unmistakable. Workplace enforcement had long been inconsistent, sometimes tough, sometimes ignored. But under Trump, the focus shifted. Employers themselves became the targets. Every rated store was required to turn over its hiring records, and any company caught cutting corners risked fines, lawsuits, or even criminal prosecution. And it wasn't only about convenience stores. Industries heavily reliant on undocumented labor, agriculture, construction, hospitality, food service, suddenly felt exposed. If federal agents could storm a household name like 7-Eleven, no business was off limits. For workers and their families, the impact was even more direct. For the 21 people arrested, it wasn't just about losing a paycheck. It was about possible deportation, family separation, and the destruction of the lives they had built. Communities across the country felt the shockwaves. Fear spread. Activists argued that these raids punished vulnerable people doing jobs most Americans avoided, rather than fixing the broken immigration system. The raids sent an unmistakable message. Enforcement could happen anywhere: your job, your neighborhood, even your local corner store. But here's the real question. Did the raids achieve anything meaningful? The numbers suggest otherwise. Out of 111 stores inspected, only 21 arrests were made, less than one per store. Supporters said numbers didn't matter. It was the warning shot that counted. Critics countered that the operation was mostly symbolic, designed for headlines and political theater, not real immigration reform. The truth likely lies in between. The raids didn't transform the system, but they reshaped the conversation. They showed how workplace enforcement could be weaponized as a political tool. And this was only the beginning. The 7-Eleven raids fit neatly into Trump's America First agenda: stricter border control, harsher penalties for employers, and a focus on cutting off the jobs that drew undocumented workers in the first place. For immigrant communities, it meant nowhere felt secure. For businesses, it meant heightened fear of scrutiny. Perhaps the biggest legacy of these raids is how they influenced immigration policy debates that still rage today. In the aftermath, legal battles over DACA continued, Congress clashed over wall funding, and Trump doubled down on aggressive enforcement. 7-Eleven's corporate office avoided direct liability, but its brand was forever marked by the association. Franchisees faced investigations, and businesses across the country got the message. For workers, the raids were a reminder that life in America could be upended at any moment. For Trump supporters, they were evidence he was keeping his promises. For critics, they were a heavy-handed spectacle meant more for optics than substance. The raids didn't reduce undocumented immigration overnight. What they did change was perception. They reminded businesses that hiring undocumented workers was risky. They reminded communities that enforcement could appear anywhere. And they reminded politicians that immigration remains one of the most divisive battles in the nation. So were these raids a necessary application of the law, or a staged political performance? That debate continues today. What's certain is that the impact of that morning is still felt, from corporate boardrooms to immigrant neighborhoods, from Congress to convenience stores. The raids demonstrated how far the government would go to send a message, and how deeply that message was received. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown insightful, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the events shaping our world. And let us know in the comments, what do you think? Necessary enforcement or political theater?